Welcome to the She's an Asset podcast. I'm your host, Autumn Schmidt, and this is the show where we empower women to lead in every area of their lives. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, an entrepreneur, or climbing the corporate ladder, this podcast is here to help you feel more confident, own your too muchness, and fully embrace who you are. In this episode, you're listening to the Maine edition, where we interview powerful women across Maine and New England who are owning their power and making an impact. We'll break down exactly how she did it so you can do it too. Because remember, you are not a liability, you are the asset. Stay difficult. Welcome to the She's an Asset podcast. I'm your host, Autumn Schmidt. We are focused on women's empowerment and leadership. And today I'm really excited to bring to you my guest, Meredith Steele. And we are going to talk about some things.
Yeah.
So Meredith, for those who do not know you, please tell us a little bit about you.
My name is Meredith Steele. I am a content creator and short form video creator in Maine. I have 2 kids. I work full time outside of the internet. I have 9 cats, which is
You are the cat lady.
It's a significant portion of my personality. And I accidentally became like an internet personality during the pandemic, and here we are.
So I want to talk to you about that. And the reason why I also love what you do and why I wanted to have you on here is because while you are that personality, you also get back to the community all the time. So I want to talk about that. So and you're very big on mental health, Meredith.
Yes.
And I would like to talk about that. So maybe could we start there? Tell me more about like your story and what happened to make you be so passionate about mental health?
So some backstory for anyone who doesn't know. My husband and Autumn went to the police academy together, and your husband too was in the same police academy class. So when COVID initially happened, I was married to a first responder, which I feel like those essential workers at the beginning of COVID had a very different experience than the people who like stayed home and watched Tiger King.
Yes.
Not to say that wasn't also equally hard for them.
Right.
So I started making videos in my car because we like definitely isolated more than your average bear because we couldn't really control his level of public exposure. So we were really isolated at home, and I started just like making these slightly manic in hindsight videos, like screaming in my car about whatever chaos I was going through that day. And it was like me verbally processing how miserable we were at home. And it was really helpful to like make a video and have somebody be like, yeah, you know, like this sucks for me too, because I feel like there was a period where everyone's making sourdough and like whipped coffee and dancing. And I was at home not having the same experience, and I didn't know how to process it. So I started making videos and people liked them. So I just kept making videos, and it's been 5 years now. And I do talk a lot. I have never given a short answer in my life. Have fun editing this. So I have clinical depression, generalized anxiety disorder, and ADHD. And so I operate in a space of some neurodivergence where I talk about things that I think are like really normal to talk about. And then people will be like, you know, some people are really overwhelmed and offended by it, but most people are like, thank you for talking about this thing that nobody talks about.
Yeah.
And so people will be like, oh, that's really brave. And I'm like, oh, shoot, like, should I have not have said that out loud? But I just started talking about what I was going through and what a hard time I was having. And the more people that said, yeah, me too, like, or thank you for talking about this, it was really helpful for me.
Yeah.
So it started out a little selfish that it started out as therapy for me, but then the more I did it, the more I realized it was also helping other people. So it was mutually beneficial.
And so what were you talking about in like when you were talking about mental health? Like what did you start out talking about?
I mean, initially it was more shrouded in comedy.
Yeah.
Where I'd be like, oh my God, I'm having such a hard time. And then I started to realize like, oh, I actually don't have to mask it with this like silly, goofy side that I can just be like, today's really hard. Like I'm having a hard time, or this is something that I have gone through in the past that is the reason I am like this now. I'm trying to think of like a more specific example.
No, it's okay. Now, so when you say, so I have so from the job, actually, I was diagnosed with anxiety and PTSD.
I bet.
And an anxiety disorder. Yeah. And so I can kind of relate. And I've definitely been depressed. When you
I loved it. You go, definitely been depressed, and we both go, haha.
Yeah. But it's like
sorry.
Yeah. No, it's true. And so Meredith, like when you did you get diagnosed with this like during like COVID, prior to COVID?
No.
Or
I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety in high school. My sophomore year, maybe junior year of high school, I attempted suicide.
You did.
And so my parents got me a therapist after a little hospital stay, and I started taking medication. And so it's just been very much a normal part of my life, not normal like, but it's been part of my everyday life since my teenage years. So I've been on antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds for 20 something years.
And so thank you for sharing that with us. I think normalizing that, I actually just was having a conversation with another successful woman, and she's going through a tough time, but she has depression, and she was talking. I'm like, I'm like, well, tell me how you get through your days. She's like, Xanax. And we laughed.
Yeah.
But she's like, but it's true. And I'm like, right. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you're getting through your day.
Yes.
You know? And so has mental health, like, have you always like talked about it with people, or?
I would say, I mean, people who know me, the difference between internet Meredith and like day-to-day Meredith is that people who know me in real life know that I'm not necessarily like the loudest, most over-the-top person you've ever met, which is sometimes in my content. But I like to think I'm a pretty accepting person. So a lot of people in my life feel comfortable talking to me about whatever they're going through. And so I feel like it's just been a normal thing for me to share with people and them to share with me.
Yeah.
Mark, my husband, will tell you that strangers will tell me everything, like in a grocery line.
Yeah.
Like all the time.
Really?
So he's like, it's just something about you that people feel comfortable just, and sometimes I'm like, please stop telling me.
Yeah.
I don't want to see your hysterectomy scar. That's a real story.
Real story.
But I think the transition from, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead in questions, but the transition from like talking about it in real life to the internet was more that when you start talking about things online, inevitably it comes with some negative feedback.
Yeah.
And I would just respond to those questions the same way I would if somebody asked me in real life. And I feel like it gives other people the tools to have those conversations. And like to your point about your friend being on Zoloft, there's a lot of opinions.
Yes, there's a lot of opinions
about people taking medication for diagnoses. And I understand that there is definitely an issue with people being overprescribed things. But there's also a function for those things in our society, and talking about it in a way that's not like, I think people think, oh, you go take Xanax, you're going to turn into this like sort of floating zombie Stepford wife that doesn't actually know what's going on. And it's not true.
That's not true.
Like, I take a lot of meds and I'm still like very much all over the place. But I think for me, it gives me like a little second longer to react.
Yeah.
But still take care of myself because I need it.
So good. And so like you've really kind of like, would you say on your platforms you've like normalized? That's been part of like, hey, this is like normal, you're normal, everything's fine. Yeah. And that's been well received.
By my intended audience.
By my intended audience.
My intended audience understands. And like my content is for, I would say generally for women, probably like 18 to any age. Most of the time, the negative feedback either comes from men who are, like to your point, who are overwhelmed by a strong, outspoken woman, or I do have a population of followers who I think are interested in learning how to stand up for themselves or to articulate feelings that they have or to break free of patterns or systems that they've been a part of.
Yeah.
And so I try to take a second before I respond sometimes, because I understand a lot of people come to that table with a different history. I've been lucky that my family was supportive and my partner is supportive and my community is supportive, but I know that not everybody has that.
No, not at all.
Trying to approach it in a way that people who aren't maybe ready to have that conversation still can. But if they're rude,
they're out.
They get
they're out.
They get the sass.
That's good. They get the sass. Yeah. Yeah. I think I've seen some of those videos.
I usually delete them a couple days later after I feel better about myself. But
so funny.
I leave them up.
Now, so when we talk about mental health, would you be willing to share with us, like, when you went to that extreme low, like, was there a trigger?
Oh yeah. It was, I think, so I don't always share all the details of it, but it was, I don't think anybody at 15 or 16 has the emotional regulation skills that they do as an adult.
100%.
And I have been in therapy for a very long time to learn like those different tools in my tool belt on how to process stuff. And I think particularly with depression, it can feel like not only is there no solution, but it's really like too much to put on somebody else. Yeah. So you think, like, I know there's a lot of conversation, particularly with suicide, where people after the fact will be like, well, that's a really selfish take. And I think that that's an unfair description for people who are really, I think a lot of people in a place of suicide are thinking that they're doing other people a favor by not burdening them and just like removing themselves from the equation. Right. And I've had that conversation a couple of times where people are like, oh, that person, completed a suicide and that's so selfish. And it's like, well, no, like, so for me, that time period, I was going through some really stressful stuff as a teenager, which in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God, Meredith, like if you only knew. But I thought it was easier to just not be alive than to make it anyone else's problem. Yeah. And now I'm like, it's everyone's problem. No. You're all going to hear about it all the time.
But in my mind, honestly, that's also what sets you apart online, because you are really funny and you do put on like super like funny videos and stuff like that. But also there's a depth to what you put out, which is why I was just I was so adamant about having you on, because the truth is, and I think that we can both agree, and hopefully anybody who's listening, is that this is real talk. And, I was having a conversation with another woman recently, and she was like, everybody online everybody is just so happy. And she's like, I'm not happy, but is there something wrong with me? And I'm like, no, that's just normal life.
Yes. Yeah.
But like, we're made to think that we have to be like, this is my perfect, and I'm perfect. Look at this body, look at this house, look at my family. And I'm like, that is their highlight reel.
Correct.
And it's curated.
Yes. And so I like to think that my content is built. I like to think my content shows up on those pages, like on those feeds of like the highly curated, because I'm aware, like I present like this, like I've got all my shit together and I'm tall and blonde and smiley and funny and successful. And these are all the things that I should be. So I pop up on someone's feed and they're like, oh my God, great. And then they like click a couple things down and they're like, oh, you're messy. And so am I. And so I make content, like I live in an old house, like look at the cracks in my wall, or like look at my stretch marks on my stomach, or which to me is so categorically normal in my life now that I'm like, whatever, look at my ass. Not, my ass is not on the internet, but like that stuff I think is so necessary. And even for me too, like I have to be really intentional about the pages I follow, because it's very easy to fall into that like deeply curated feed. And then you're like, I am a failure.
1,000. 1,000%. And I've gone there.
Yeah.
And, which, people, especially for like what I'm teaching, right? Like women's empowerment, be confident in yourself. This is your body language, all these things. We're going to fuck people up, right? Like that's like what I'm teaching. And I have to like literally remove there's people I've unfollowed, not because I love them too much.
Yeah.
I'm like, your life, I don't even know if it's real, but I want it. And like, now I feel like shit about myself.
Yep.
I can't have it.
Right.
But nobody's having that conversation, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I feel like it's Mark. So Mark doesn't have social media. My husband has no social media. And so he does not see my content unless I explicitly like take out my phone and show him. And so sometimes like he'll go viral in a video that he doesn't know I posted. And he'll be like, I'm on someone's feed right now. Like, how did I get here? And I forget the point of this. What was I going to say?
I don't know, but that's the best story, because if people actually knew Steele, that's fucking hilarious.
Oh yeah, no, he hates it. Like he's like the most private person ever. And I am like, I put our business out there. And he's like, Meredith, I'm respectful. But there was a reason I was saying
we were talking about like perfectly curated life.
Oh, and I always tell people to unfollow me. I'm like, if there's something I'm doing that's upsetting to you, like
I have seen those videos.
Yeah, like it's okay. Like there's no contractual obligation like to follow. My own husband is not a follower of mine. He's not a follower of anybody, but like you don't have to consume things that are bad for you, and it doesn't mean anything about somebody else's content. I mean, there is some bad content that you should definitely not follow, but I also think a lot of people, like to your point, you're teaching women to protect themselves, right? But in order to get women to understand that they need protection, there's so many steps that have to come before.
So many.
And there's like, I don't even know who says it, but it's like some people answer the door at the first knock and some people answer to the 10th knock. And like you being the 7th knock doesn't mean that you're not doing work.
Yeah.
So like you're teaching people how to defend themselves, but you're knock 10, but like who knows what steps they have to take to get there. And so when their feed is full of people who make them feel bad about themselves, they're not answering any knocks.
So true. And I think this is an important conversation just because I think a lot of us go through that. And it's not so much talked about. And so I appreciate you being honest and saying that. Meredith, what do you do to pick yourself up? Like, how do you, when you overcome, like you've obviously went through some really tough times, right? Like when you were a teenager and then, but you made the comment, you're like, and if I could have only told her, hold the phone, right? Like shit's about to get real.
Yeah.
Like some hard stuff that you've been through. Like what do you do? Like, do you have any strategies? What do you do?
Well, so we're at Mindy's Munchies and I came in and you go, do you want like a Dubai chocolate something? And I was like, I've actually never had them. So there's a lot of things online that people would assume that I understand because I'm a person that's online, but I spend very little time on the internet.
Wow.
And that is definitely intentional. I don't consume content because I know that it is not great for me. And I've been in therapy once a week for 20 something years.
Yeah.
And I know the things that recharge me, and scrolling the internet is not one of them. So having sort of like a mental checklist of the things, like I exercise, I try to touch grass, which is like my favorite thing to say to trolls online too. But go outside and touch grass. But like I try to spend time outside, which like I take my meds, I go to therapy. But I have a lot of tools in my tool belt that I have to make sure I'm checking off all the boxes. And I also have people, particularly my husband, who I trust enough to say like, hey, you're not okay right now.
Yeah.
And I think when you spend a lot of time on your phone, you don't always get to build those relationships anymore, where especially in the mental health space, like sometimes you can't tell when things are getting bad because you're in your own head. And so making sure you have someone outside of yourself that you trust enough to be like, dude, something's up. So
don't you think that? So I really need to highlight this because that was like one of the first things out of your mouth was when I said, have you tried the viral Dubai cup, which we're about to try, and she's about to try for the first time, which I'm really excited about at Mindy's. But and you're like, dude, I don't spend that much time on the internet. Okay, well, this is really important because Meredith is huge on the internet. And you're like, yeah, but I also know it's not good for my mental health. This is so important because I know so many people and I get caught up in the scroll.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna give myself like 5 minutes on TikTok because I love to watch people falling down.
Oh.
That is my pastime. So I get
my most viewed video is Mark falling off the porch.
Okay. Yes. So I just love those videos.
Yeah.
This is hilarious. And I literally will cry.
Yeah, they're good.
My husband has to come in and be like, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, I can't right now. Like, I'm dying, right? But what will happen is then I'm on to something else and I'm down this rabbit hole and then I'm on politics and then I'm on who even knows, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is so huge that you aren't, like, you've really checked yourself. And
I also I like to call myself a content creator, but I definitely fall under the influencer umbrella.
Yes.
And once you start to see the internet as a business, it changes the way that I look at content, because I'm like, I'll scroll and I'll be like, what are they selling me? Or what are they telling me about myself is not good enough that I have to buy something to fix it? And so looking at it through the lens of like, oh, this isn't entertainment, like social media is a business and people are making money from this. And I'll catch myself, because I love to shop and I love to get my hair done, my nails done, whatever. There's a lot of great stuff online. But then you get to a point where you're like, oh, I am not feeling good about myself, or I feel like I have to buy something. I'm like, nope. And I have apps on my phone to keep me off of things. I just bought another thing to keep me off my phone. So I'm not like some self-righteous person being like, I don't spend any time online. I spend a lot of time online. I shouldn't. And that was my chair. That was not me. But I try to spend as little time online as possible.
So smart. I work on it diligently. I probably need some apps to keep me off, to be honest. But I work on it diligently to like set it down. And like, I know like when my husband and I spend the day outside, like last weekend, we spent the day outside, right? Yeah. So like in Maine, it hadn't been nice for like so long.
It's never nice on weekends in Maine.
Oh my gosh. Right. So we're like, we have a boat and like we spend a ton of time 6 hours to be exact, detailing this freaking boat. and then we planted our garden and then we had a fire at night. Aww. And like, we didn't watch TV. There was no screen time. Yeah. And like, we laid in bed and we both were like, that was the best day ever. Like, we worked our asses off, but it was the best day ever.
And you probably slept so well.
So good. Yeah. And like, we got up, like, we want to do it again, but it was raining. But like, yeah, you know, but then we fall into those habits. And so I really appreciate your realness, especially when you're like, yeah, like I am this content creator with a huge following. And I also recognize that the internet's really not that great all the time.
Yeah, no. Or like ever.
Yeah.
It can be really good. There are a lot of good things and good people on the internet.
Yeah. And it is hard to break through. I have to be honest, because I do focus on like having good content, like meaningful. Yeah. I'm very much about meaningful content too. So it can be hard when it's a sea of not so great people, but they understand it's like a business and they understand things more than like regular people. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Also, like rage and anger keeps people engaged. Yeah. And so this is like my number one thing is I'm always trying to be like, why is this person acting this way? Because like that cycle of getting caught scrolling is also like, the more upset you are by something, the more likely you are to comment or send it to somebody or engage or keep scrolling. And so like the psychology of it, like that keeps you engaged. And then you leave with all those feelings like in your body. So you're like, I need to stop doing this.
So good. Yeah.
I don't mean to like talk trash on the internet because there are some great things.
There's some great things, obviously. And we know that.
Yes.
But we also know that there's the downside. And so what do you do for the community when it comes to, I know you talk a lot about mental health and then you also give back. So tell us more about that.
So before COVID, I was a server for a very long time because we had little kids and with police schedules, it's a nightmare to try and work like a 9 to 5. And so I waited tables. And then the first year of COVID, as my page was taking off, I was also waiting tables.
You were?
And working my full-time job.
Oh, wow.
And
being a police wife.
Yeah. and during the pandemic too. So
oh my God.
it was kind of a mess. And I went to work one day and a coworker of mine had been given church pamphlets instead of a tip multiple times during the day. And this like particular individual was very like just very open with their sexuality. It was very clear that they were a gay individual and that they were given these pamphlets for a reason instead of a tip. And I was mad for them. And I sort of made like a one-off video being like, hey, because I had seen people do these things called Venmo tips where they like crowdfund, like, hey, send me $1, send me 50 cents. We'll raise this money and we'll tip it to somebody. Yeah. And so I made a video being like, this is a thing that happened at work. I've never done a Venmo tip before, but if anybody wants to send some money to my Venmo, I'm going to collect it and like replace this person's tip with the money you send. And I've never shared the dollar amount or the person who got it, but it got to a point where it was so much money coming in that I was like, this is actually like, this is enough to do good things for more than just this person. So I made a video being like, I'm capping it. The money that we've raised is going to this person. And then everything forward, I had donated to Equality Maine. And they used it for a camp that has a summer camp for kids with gender identity and sexual, who are processing sexual orientation and just needed a space to feel safe. And I think we raised enough to like put 10 or 12 kids through summer camp, in addition to giving the server like a really significant amount of money. And that video, I think, had like 400,000 views. It was not like, you know, like the video of my husband falling has 30 million views. Like it wasn't like a viral video. It wasn't a crazy video. It was just like one of those moments I'm like, holy crap, I can raise a lot of money really quickly.
Yeah.
And by not asking people to do much, like it was like send $1. And so I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep doing this. And so I've done Venmo tips. And also at the same time, I was a server. My friends were all servers. There was not a lot of money to be made in the hospitality industry because the state of Maine was shut down for people coming in out of state.
Yep.
So I was like, what's a way that I can get money to, not my friends, but like people in the serving community who are not making money in the tourism industry right now. And so we started doing more of them and running around the state, giving people $1,000 here and $1,000 there. And
wow.
Again, to the point of like, sometimes the internet can be really bad. And I think people really want to see good things and to like give somebody $1 and then see someone be like actually joyful and happy. It's really cool.
That's incredible. Yeah. Now, do you remember how many you've done?
Probably 20 something at this point. There are a couple that I never posted because I'm like big on consent and I know not everybody wants to be blasted all over the internet. 20 something for sure. And then I do a bunch of fundraisers too, like with the same format where like American Foundation for Suicide Prevention did a drag show.
You've carried the weight. You've played small to keep the peace, but deep down, you know you're meant for more. Join me on July 24th in Kennebunkport with a She's an Assets having a women's empowerment and leadership event held by myself, Autumn Schmidt, former full-time law enforcement officer, a 20-year martial artist, and a life coach of over 10 years. This is not your typical workshop. It's bold, it's interactive. It's going to be an experience that fuses some situational awareness, mindset, and leadership so you can walk out grounded, clear, and unshakable. Remember, you are not a liability. You are the asset. Here's to staying difficult, and I hope that you'll join us. Link below to grab your tickets.
For suicide prevention last year, I've worked with the Alzheimer's Association, Pine Tree Camp, which is a barrier-free access to summer camp for kids with disabilities in the state of Maine. I'm sure there's more. I know there's more. I'll remember them as soon as we're done filming. But a bunch of like local organizations too that put money, or like that money goes right to, after the shooting in Lewiston, we raised a bunch of money. So just, I think a lot of times people want to help and they don't know how to. And it's very easy to be like, here's a Venmo.
Yeah.
Send a nickel.
Exactly.
Send 16 cents and it adds up.
And I just have to highlight, that's one of the things I love so much about you is like you're using your platform for good, right? And I know like 400,000 views in the right compared to Mark falling off a porch, the 30 million views. It's not that big of a deal, but it kind of really is because look at everybody donating $1. You know what I mean? Like,
it's crazy.
Look at what it can do. Yeah. It's wild, and we don't have a lot of people that are doing that. That's what I just need to highlight, and that's why I love having you on, and that's why I'm so. Like, I just wanted people to hear that there are people in Maine, women, empowered, who've gone through shit.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you almost committed, like, you were almost not here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've gone through some crazy shit, too, in your life.
Oh, yeah, I have. I've gone through some things.
Yeah.
But, you know, and so, okay, I'm going to bring us back a little bit. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because it's
you're in charge. I'm not.
Okay. So, when we talk about mental health, we talk about the internet. Yeah. Right. So when we first started, I started to tell you, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and then I want to hear all about yours and I want to know how you deal with it.
Okay.
So in 2022, I was severely bullied online. So bad. Like I don't have, like we're just going to be honest. Like I have like 23,000 followers on TikTok and like 9,500 on Instagram and whatever on Facebook. Facebook, I don't get bullied. Okay.
Which is nuts because that is the meanest app on the internet.
Are you serious?
Yes,
no, Instagram.
Oh my God, they're so mean on Facebook.
Really?
Oh,
no, okay, they're so mean to me on Instagram.
I love this for us. At least it's not across the board for both of us. Yeah.
That was also my chair, by the way. I just moved it. Okay, so so on Instagram, I had thousands, and I mean like not like I felt like it was like what famous people go through who's not famous. Like I'm not famous, okay?
Yeah.
And they came for me. They made memes about me. There's podcasts about me. Yes.
I don't know anything about this.
Yeah. I prey on women. That I was never a police officer. I fucked my whole department. Of course. Of course I did. I fucked my lieutenant. I was an auxiliary.
Were you married at this point?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Very married. We have a great relationship. Like, if anybody, like, it was just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, my poor husband, like, because it was hitting kind of close to home here, right? Like, it's just.
And that wasn't a great year for him either, right? When
I don't know.
did he get hurt?
Was that the year that he got hurt? I think it was the next year.
Oh, okay, good. So we just spread out the misery.
Yeah, it was lots of misery.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
I don't know if you talk about that on here.
No, it's okay. I do.
Okay.
Talk about it. Yeah, and so all those things happened. And actually it got so bad that anytime I would do anything great, the people would actually like, so I'm also a keynote speaker and I travel the country and I speak. Okay. Well, I got hired at this first responder event, and somebody called the administrator and was like, I'm not going to tell you who I am. I'm not going to give you my resume, but I'm going to tell you that Autumn Clifford is like, you should not have her on. And so the administrator calls me and he's like, well, I don't understand it. Can you talk to me about it? And I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
A lot of people hate me because I'm standing up for women in law enforcement. And actually, I'm telling the women in law enforcement the mistakes I made. So like when I was early on, I made a mistake and I slept with a deputy and he was married at the time. But the full story is that he was a psycho. He actually ended up, he divorced his wife. He ended up beating up a correctional officer, almost gets fired, doesn't. What? Then ends up getting like they split. He ends up getting with another woman and beats the shit out of her. And then now he's no longer a police officer. Like, it's just this wild stuff that like, yes, like I fully take responsibility, but I was 20, he was 36.
There's a power dynamic there that is.
Yeah. I was 20, he was 36. And he was the married one. And I shouldn't have done it. And I take full responsibility, but that happens.
Yep.
Okay.
Two things can be true at once.
Yeah. And so like I'm telling these women, Meredith, I'm like, hey, don't do what I did.
Yeah.
Don't act like this because this is what's going to happen. I shouldn't have to tell you this.
Correct.
I hate this, but I'm just trying to help you so you don't go through what I went through. And I had to rebuild my entire reputation again. Okay.
Yeah.
So now the internet and at the time that was, I built an online coaching. Like that's what I did. I went from being a police officer to online coaching.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so they came for me and it was so bad. It shut me down. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And it really did it for a whole year. And I'm going to tell you the truth. And actually I haven't said this publicly. It still fucks with me so bad. I actually am having a really hard time gathering up the courage and to put myself out online again for the women who I know need me and need to hear what I have to say. But I'm so like, oh my gosh, it took everything out of me because you almost start to believe it.
Yep.
And that was like 6 months of my life and through the whole year. But 6 months of it was I was believing. I'm like, I am a fraud. Oh my God, I'm a failure. Yeah. And then like they would tell me, you're not even a cop. You're not even a cop. And then I'm like, Adam, like I would talk to my husband.
Did I go to the police academy?
That's what I said. I'm like,
where did I meet you?
Can we just check this, please?
Yeah.
And he's like, Autumn. But when hundreds of people are saying it and then it turns into thousands, you start. So have you experienced?
Oh yeah. I mean, very different, obviously, but and also like something I've processed deeply in therapy where because people will be like, don't focus on the hate. Like that's a big one. People are like, rights above, like they're trolls. And you're like, my therapist will be like, your brain is hardwired to acknowledge that like a negative comment or like a threat, that's a risk or that's a red flag, and your brain is supposed to recognize those things. So yes, you can get 1,000 positive comments, but if one comes in that's really negative, your brain's going to flag that. And so having to tell myself that like, it's okay is a big start because people are horrible. I've had, I would say 3 separate significant hate events. Right early on when I started, I have long COVID and I had been very, very sick from COVID, like early on in COVID. And I was really excited to get vaccinated because my doctor had told me that it would alleviate some of my long COVID symptoms. So, and at that time, I was also making content for like 30 to 40-year-old women. And I started a video saying, hey kids, because I was talking to these women and I used to joke being like, hi kids, because we're all like 40 years old.
Right.
And I was sharing how I was really excited to get vaccinated. And it got picked up by like a Drain the Swamp, like very intense alt-right anti-vax group who said I was targeting their children and that I was like coming for their children with like big pharma, which was like very much not the case. And I had to deactivate my account for a significant amount of time until they found a new target. But that was like death threat level insanity, where people are like, and you learn very quickly how insane people are behind a screen. My mouth is so dry.
No, it's okay.
Enjoy that clip.
Holy cow. Death threats?
Oh, yeah. Okay. And then so fast forward, then and this is something I talk about a lot too, is I don't post my kids online because, to make a very long story short, I used to. They were never like part of my content, but I'd post like a family photo every now and then. And someone stole all the images of it and created like a whole identity pretending to be my family. And so I talk about it online, similar, like obviously not at the scale of what you went through, but to be like, hey, this is a thing that I did. I didn't really know what was going to come from it, but this bad thing happened. And I'm sharing this story so that it doesn't happen to someone else. Or like, so you have this information because I didn't even know it was a possibility. And you can do with this information what you want. Like, to your point, like sleep with whoever you want, but like this is a thing that could happen.
Yes.
And so I did a news interview about it. And I learned that sometimes large media groups will purchase a news story.
Really?
And like I don't know what your demographic is, but like I'm very, very liberal, like very like huge feminist, very liberal. And my story was purchased by Fox News, like big Fox News.
Yeah.
And they purchased all the language of the story and then shifted the language for like a very salacious headline that came out on Christmas Eve a couple years ago. And it was like, and so when someone steals your images online and builds a life, it can be called role playing or digital kidnapping. And they shared all these articles being like, influencer children kidnapped.
Oh my gosh.
It was Christmas Eve and we started, and it was on Fox and Friends in the morning. It was on their homepage. It was all over. And then it was all over Facebook. And we started getting phone calls, and I learned who in my life watches Fox News very quickly. People being like, did your kids get kidnapped? Like, are your kids okay? Are you safe? And I was like, first of all, I was like, what? I didn't even know that they bought the article. So here I'm reading an article about myself that is factually incorrect.
Wow.
Which is a misrepresentation of my words on Fox News. And it's like very salacious article. And then after reassuring like my entire extended family that my children had not been kidnapped and that we were all safe, then came like months of harassment online from people being like, you don't deserve to have custody of your children. You're a bad mother. And then you start to believe it because you're like, yeah, why didn't I know this thing that I know now? Like, to the point of like my mental health stuff in high school, like, wow, like I should have known like things could be so much worse, or I should have known this thing could have happened. Right. And it went on for a while, and I still talk about it. I was on Dr. Phil last year talking about it, like why I really don't believe kids should be posted online, particularly not people with large platforms, which is a whole nother conversation.
Which it is.
Which I love. If you ever want to talk about it.
I do want to talk about it eventually. Yep.
And then, so that passes. And then I made like a pretty offhand video about how I was excited about Taylor Swift dating Travis Kelce because she gets to be small girl. Mm-hmm. And that video will haunt, I swear to God, it'll be on my gravestone. I could open up my TikTok right now and show you 20 comments in the last 5 minutes, not 5 minutes, that's an exaggeration, but like I get made fun of as like the poster child for being a cringy millennial to a volume that I like never could have expected, to the point that I changed my style of content.
Really?
I stopped making as many like yell in the car videos. I stopped showing like the bigger, like more fun side of my personality because I was so tired of getting made fun of. And I'm like, I'm almost 40. Like I'm grown. Right. I have a therapist. I have a support system. I take meds. And like a lot of the hate comes from teenagers, like kids. And it still like really, really hurts my feelings. Mm-hmm. And nothing prepares you for that. And it also like this distortion of reality where I'm like, am I the most annoying person on the planet? Like, should I kill myself? Because I would get emails.
Yes, me too.
Emails being like, go die. Like, here's a plan for you. This is how you should do it. And I'm like, it gets to the point where you hear it so much that you're like, maybe they have a point. But then you talk about it and people are like, well, don't focus on the negative. And I'm like, how do you not?
Right.
How do you not focus on the negative?
They don't have any idea.
Yeah. And again, like at least my stuff is at least semi-disconnected enough from reality where I'm like, the Fox News stuff was a manipulation of my language. Like the Taylor Swift stuff is kids. The vaccine stuff is like nuts. But like you're trying to tell somebody, it's like somebody dying in a car accident because they didn't have a seatbelt on, and like you like ripping them to shreds as they talk about somebody. You know what I mean? Like that was a bad example, but like it's like there's an influencer right now whose child died in a drowning accident.
Yes.
And it became this very large conversation online, and somebody made a video and it said, tragedy looks preventable when you're not the one experiencing it, or something like that. Like to the point that like, yeah, of course you would know better if you're reading the whole story after the fact.
Exactly.
And like, that's the whole point. That's the reason I'm here.
Right.
Like in the same point of like, you're teaching self-defense. Like someone's like, oh, of course you would poke them in the eyeballs. Like not everybody has those skills. And when someone finally has the nerve to be like, I'd like to learn this thing by being like, you're stupid and you should have known that, like, or kill yourself, or you're a whore, and you're like, am I?
Yeah.
But if you don't talk about it,
100%,
it just lives in your brain and it festers and it gets worse. So I think what you do is great and very important, because it also tells other people that it's okay to talk about it and to do it.
You know, when I the truth is we hold trainings, right? She's an asset. We do trainings all across New England. But I hosted my first ever event in Portland in March,
which I heard was amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And we actually put 100 women. I didn't. I'm like, people care. Like people care. Anyways, we put 100 butts in seats, and I talked all about bullying, and it blew my mind the amount of women who were like, "Me too. Yeah, me." And I'm like, "Really?"
Yep.
They're like, "I want to talk about this." I'm like, "Are you serious?"
Yep.
So, Meredith, what do you like? You go to therapy, but like, do you have like a mantra? Do you have like a mindset? Do you have something that helps you to navigate? I mean, that's some big stuff, man. Like Fox News, it's a kind of a big deal, man.
I think a big thing for me is that, which is also like kind of an exhausting coping mechanism, but it works, is working really hard to disconnect. Aside from like all of the tools that exist on the platforms, right? Like you can put word filters and I can spend time not on the internet and all that. But I really try to disconnect their words from me, and more as like, this is a reflection of them. So like when you're talking about the things that people say to you, I'm like, okay, who are these women? What has happened in their life? Why are they upset? And this has absolutely nothing to do with me. And I have to say that to myself so often, where I'm like, this is a child writing this.
Yes.
Their worst fear is being cringy. Like their worst fear is being embarrassing. So obviously teenage me probably would have been like, yeah, kill yourself, because I did. Or I didn't, but I tried.
You tried.
So I'm like, okay, they're telling me to do this because that's what they would do. It's not what I need to do, and it's not a reflection of me. But I also know that when it's at that point where it's really bothering me, that's when I'm like, I need to take a break.
Yeah.
I need to repost old things. I need to touch grass. I garden a lot. I call friends. But I don't think anything, there is no rule book or steps to follow in those scenarios, because they're just so insane.
And like,
they're so insane.
They're so insane. And I will say, like, this is why I think that parents need to really monitor their children being online, because we are seeing a severe uptick of kids taking their own lives. And we've had that happen in Waterboro. So in Waterboro, Maine, we've had 3 teenage suicides in like the last like 4 years. And I just know from what I went through, and maybe you can relate, like I couldn't get away from it. My phone, I would look, because a lot of us go to our social media to like check out. And so you go and you turn your phone on, even you check your email, you look at your messages, anything, and it was, you're this, you're that. Like it was just constant, and I couldn't get away from it. And so I'm like, this is what children are going through. This is why, because they can't, because when we were kids, we'd go home
Yeah.
And like there would
they
be
can't flick a football telling you suck at you.
Right.
Notes.
Yes. But when I just like when we, I mean,
there's no escaping it.
Right. There's no escaping it now. There used to be. It's that chair.
It's my chair.
And I just, it's, that the bullying, it's huge, man.
And so we talked about this earlier. Like I don't share my kids online. Also because I know that their presence online then becomes an extension of me.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to be on the receiving end of anything. But I do have a 14-year-old daughter who's going into high school next year who until right now, she does not have any social media. And I feel like it's going to be baptism by fire when that starts. And I know it's very rare to have a 14-year-old who doesn't have social media. And so we're like trying to, teach her the skills to enter that space well. But I mean, being a teenager is hard enough.
Yeah.
Just like in your own head.
Yeah.
Then adding the internet and how cruel people can be is awful.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Meredith, can I ask you something about being a mom? A lot of, I'm not a mom yet. We are intentional. But I have a lot of moms who are listening. And do you ever find yourself saying like, or feeling burned out from, she's like, your eyes just said yes,
Yeah.
But like from everything. And like, how do you manage it all?
Not well. Like to your point of people on the internet. That's also why I don't share my kids is like, I am a good parent, like categorically, right? Like I'm not smoking crack and I'm not beating the kids. Like they have 3 square meals. They're fine.
Yeah.
I think we only see highlight reels online.
Yes.
And I feel like it's so important there's some great pages that I follow of moms who are a mess. Because I feel like most moms are a mess, and I work full time on top of the internet. I have 2 kids who play sports and are one of whom I yelled at this morning. Mm-hmm. And I feel like not enough people talk about burnout, and also the internet. To the water bottle point, there's so many things that people will find a way to be mad about online, or intentionally misinterpret or find a way to be to manipulate. And talking about having a hard time as a parent is a really difficult space to navigate online. Particularly, there's some specific communities online where if you say anything negative about your child, that they will come, or your experience as a mom, they will come hard for you as being you're ungrateful to have a child. And so I don't talk about it online a lot. And so I understand why a lot of people yes, there is a highlight reel online, but I also understand why people don't show the messy stuff. Cause it's for this influencer who just lost her child, there's a group debate about why she should have had a fence around her pool. And it's it's so gross to discuss.
What?
But it's also it's such a perfect example of you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But there's a reason a lot of people don't share the messy stuff. It's because people are so fucking mean.
Right.
There's not a child over there.
You're fine. Okay. Don't even worry about it.
But yeah, no, I'm burned out. I am so burned out. I'm so tired.
Yeah, I know. I'm burned out
all the time.
How do you deal with it? I was talking to a mom today. And she was like, "I'm so burned out."
Yeah. I don't know. There's Costco makes these really great meals in their deli section that are almost completely cooked.
Yeah.
Because I remember saying to Mark over the winter, I'm I just want to do 4 things well, instead of 20 things poorly. Mm-hmm. And giving up this idea of what you should be as a parent.
Yes.
I remember when my kids were little, there was a day that I was sick, and I somehow was I believed that I was some sort of moral failure because they didn't get some freaking beautiful roast with veggies and a square meal at dinner. And I was talking to my godmother because the kids had watched TV all day, and I was so embarrassed. I was they watched TV for 12 hours. Their brains are going to be mush. And she was did anything happen today that is going to ruin them for life? And I was no. And she was if they watch TV all day for a month straight, are they going to be ruined for life? And I was no. She's it's okay. So I just have to release yourself from your kids should have 2 hours of screen time a day. Sometimes they're not going to, or they have to have this special, organic meal, or like they have to be like it starts from pregnancy on. Like someone will tell you what they should have, and I just look at my kids and I'm like, you're fine. Like the goal for us is kind, well-adjusted people who can like function in society, and that's it. I'm like, if you want to, I have a child who ate like nothing but cheddar cheese for a year. He's fine.
He's fine. Like, but we all go through that. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like release yourself. Like Costco dinner is a staple in my home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, should I be Miss Susie housewife with an apron making a meal? But fuck no. Like no, because I will kill everybody around me if I have to maintain that. So
I love that.
Separate your brain from the internet, because
it will.
They can eat peanut butter every day. Peanut butter and jelly, unless they have a nut allergy.
Right.
But they're fine.
Right.
The kids are fine.
Yes.
Kids are fine.
I don't know how you grew up. I'm gonna tell you right now.
Outside.
I grew up outside. I grew up on soda and like cookies and like chicken nuggets and macaroni and cheese. And it was like, figure it out. Yeah. That is how I grew up. You figure it out. So like all of this like wholeness and like nutrition, like I didn't grow up on that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's a balance. Like you can't do anything 100%. Yeah. So yeah, like sometimes my kids don't have a vegetable or a fruit in a day, and like they're fine.
They're fine.
They do eat, but here I am like, please, internet, they do eat fruits and vegetables, right? Like, oh, but that's the internet for you.
That's the internet.
Just don't ask parenting advice. Don't ask parenting advice to the internet, and don't look to the internet for parenting advice. Ask someone you know in real life, or your mom, because she was neglecting you 30 years ago in the 90s. Like, you know what I mean? Like we were just outside for 12 hours and our parents didn't know where we were. So sometimes I'm like, Mom, what should I do? Because I know whatever advice she gives me is like, they're fine.
They're
fine.
Like,
great.
Yes. That's such a good point. I was like climbing trees and like, I was doing all sorts of shit, like big ass trees, not like little ones, like big ass pine trees. And my mom didn't give a shit. She's
so
like,
Mark, I say Mark to you, my husband, grew up in a mill town in Connecticut, very similar to Lewiston, where there's a lot of abandoned mills. And the mills are full of like drug addicts and people squatting there and like setting things on fire. And he's always like, yeah, we used to ride our bikes to the mills and play manhunt for 8 hours. And I'm like, this is the perfect example of like 90s parenting.
Yes.
You're like dodging behind like a pile of needles to like you're fine. Not recommending that now.
Right.
It's a different world, but like we're okay.
We're okay.
Your kid's gonna be okay if they go to McDonald's.
Yes. I lived on McDonald's.
Love McDonald's.
Yep. Me too. But I'm telling you should. So my husband, everywhere we go, I'm trying to replicate a Big Mac. I love Big Mac so much. Oh my God. Anyways.
I don't think I've ever had a Big Mac.
What?
I like a McDouble with extra pickles.
You do?
Yeah.
I like McDoubles.
I'm trying to cut back.
Really? I like McDoubles dressed as Big Macs.
The Big Macs have lettuce, right?
Yeah, they have
I don't
lettuce.
like a wet, crunchy feeling.
Take the lettuce off, but it's the sauce. It's the
See, you're like, take the lettuce off. What a concept.
Yeah.
We'll be fine. Sorry, I fidget a lot.
Oh, it's okay. As we wrap up,
yes.
I would like to ask you, I look at you and I think that you're a very empowered woman, and you clearly stand for that. The demographic listening, we stand for that. That's what we want. And as we talked about on here, we don't every day, we're not always. And that's really important, is like, as empowered as I am and like fuck around and find out as I am, I have so many days where I'm like, I'm not good enough. And why am I doing this? And I'm fat and my hair's too curly and I am not blonde enough. I need to be more blonde. And like, and I have a double chin. Like you just do.
Yeah.
And we can get in those traps. My question to you, Meredith, is what would you like to leave our listeners with for some advice for her, who might be going through that? And like maybe I know you've gone through that. Like, what would you like to say to her to keep her staying empowered?
There's an author, and I don't remember who it is, who says like, do it scared. Because I post body positive stuff.
Yeah, you do.
But like, I don't always feel good about my body. And like, to your point, like I'll look in the mirror and I'll be like, ugh. And then there's a thing where you, like, would you say it to your younger self? So like, take a picture of yourself when you're little and be like, the way I'm talking to myself right now, like, would I talk to little me like that? Or I have a daughter and I'm like, okay, would I talk to her like that? No. And just saying to myself, like, it's okay if feel like I'm failing, or if I'm feeling bad about my body or feeling bad about my work, like sometimes I make content. I'm like, this is garbage. Like, this is trash. Like, here you go, internet. And like, just keep showing up, because even though the internet is a highlight reel, and even real life, like, you know, you sit on the sidelines of at a sport event or at a work event, and people show up as their most confident self, but everyone is having that inner dialogue. And if they're not, like, please write a book.
Yes, please write the book.
But I think showing up scared or showing up at 10% is better than showing up not at all. But like, take care of yourself first. And like, we're all just doing our best. And we're all kind of doing a shitty job.
Yeah. Total.
Like, sometimes I'm like, who's letting me make these videos? Like, who's letting me post this? And like, it's me. Like, I'm the only person in my way. So yeah, just do it. Yeah. And like, also, like, the worst days, like, some of the best stuff can come out of it. So like, you know, take the addict mantra of like, it's all temporary, like, one day at a time. Yeah. Like, today's, you don't have to make a permanent solution today. Right. Or anything. Just like, show up tomorrow. Like, sit on the couch, eat McDonald's, and show up tomorrow. Just like, don't stay. Right. Don't stay there. Bad place. So, Meredith, where can we find you? Babies of Steele on the internet. Because I thought I'd be a mommy blogger. And now how that started? Yeah. Well, because my last name is Steele, and it was supposed to be like a play on Superman, like Man of Steel, Babies of Steel. And now that's my username. It's too late to change it, but there are no babies on my page. So yeah, there's Babies of Steel on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Be nice. She's like, be nice. I'm over here like, please, let's hang out on Facebook, because people aren't mean to me on Facebook. My God, I'm going to send you some stuff. You're going to love it. Yeah. So, thank you so much. We're going to have Meredith's stuff all in the show notes. So all you got to do is go down, click below, go follow her. You have to go watch the videos. We all need, is the Mark video pinned somewhere? No, but I should. Oh God, he hates that video. It's great. How far are we scrolling to find this like a couple of years. I'll find it. I'll repost it. Okay, you should totally. It's you said it's got like 30 million views. Yeah. So you'll know it and find it and watch it. And I went to the academy with that lovely gentleman. Have some good stories about Steele. I'm sure he's got stories about me, actually. And fun fact, and that's where my husband and I met. So, which is really cool. Thank you again. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the She's an Asset podcast. If you wouldn't mind, could you please share this out? The only way we grow and I can get this out to as many people as possible is with your help. So we're kind of in this together. And the good thing is I know you have my back. So I want to say thank you and ask for you to share the show. And if we're not hanging out in the socials, I hope that you'll come and hang out with me. I'm Autumn Clifford pretty much everywhere. Thank you so much. See you next time.